Hello everyone, my name is Alexandra Omel, and before I begin, I'd just like to thank Professor Roberts for all of the help and feedback she's provided, both during my work on this project as well as throughout the last semester. Now, today I'm going to be talking with you about a fairly new development in the field of chemistry, the oil-absorbing polyurethane sponge. Specifically, we'll be discussing what this sponge is, how it works, and why it's so important for us today. So with that, let's get right into it. Now, oil spills, particularly those that occur in the ocean, pose a huge threat, both to marine life as well as to our environment. However, many commonly used methods of cleaning up these oil spills are largely ineffective. For example, one method of oil removal is to burn off the oil. However, this causes pollution, and it can severely harm marine life. Certain chemicals can also be used to break down the oil, but this process is also very harmful to animals. Other methods, such as simply skimming oil off the surface of the ocean, often remove large quantities of water right along with the oil, and they can even leave a thin layer of oil behind. Therefore, since many of these methods are both unsafe and ineffective, attempts were made to discover a safe and effective way in which to clean up these oil spills. And as a result of that, a low-cost polyurethane sponge was developed that absorbs oil while at the same time repels water. As you can see in this image here to the right, this sponge soaks up oil while being at the same time impermeable to water, so that when the sponge is placed in a combination oil and water environment, the sponge is able to selectively absorb only the oil droplets from that solution. The absorbed oil then can be easily removed in the same way that you would remove water from a kitchen sponge, by simply squeezing it. The products used to manufacture these oil-absorbing sponges are all very common and inexpensive, making it a very viable option for use on a larger scale. Additionally, some of these sponges can absorb up to 30 times their own weight in oil. So not only are they inexpensive, they're also highly effective at what they do. Now, it is important to note that there's a wide variety of methods being experimented with in order to determine the best procedure for creating the oil-absorbing sponge. However, despite this very wide variety of methods available, the following manufacturing process that I will be detailing is one of the most simple and inexpensive processes developed so far, making this method one of the best prospects out there as of yet. So, with that, let's take a closer look, specifically at how these sponges are manufactured. Now, polyurethane sponges, as seen in the image on the left, are foam-like substances that can be easily bought for a very inexpensive price. And we even see this sponge in many commonly used items, including some types of kitchen sponges. Now, polyurethane alone is actually hydrophilic, and that means that the sponge absorbs water. Since we want the sponge to absorb oil but repel water, it must be modified in order to make it more effective at oil absorption, while at the very same time absorbing little to no amounts of water. To do this, the polyurethane sponge is first coated in a layer of graphene oxide by placing the sponge in a graphene oxide suspension with an adjusted pH value of 9. Graphene oxide is a combination of the elements carbon, oxygen, and hydrogen that's been formed into a flat honeycomb pattern. This compound is essentially just graphite, which is what pencil lead is made of, that's then been oxidized, meaning that oxygen was added to it. The sponge created by adding this coating to it can be seen in the image on the right that's labeled GPU sponge. Now, after having this graphene oxide coating added, the sponge is still hydrophilic. So, the coated sponge must then be reduced via hydrazine in a high heat environment. Hydrazine is a solution made of nitrogen and hydrogen, and the sponge is submerged in this solution for a length of time, and doing so improves the sponge's structural integrity. This process is also what makes the sponge hydrophobic, or water absorbing, thus enabling it to absorb oil while at the same time repelling water. As seen in the image all the way to the right, this process is what creates the final product, called reduced graphene oxide polyurethane sponge, or RGP for short. Now, if we look at the images shown here on the right, we're able to see a miniature demonstration of how this sponge could be used in the field. We can also see just how effective and thorough that these RGPU sponges are at oil absorption. When they're placed in the water, the oil is entirely absorbed into the sponge, and in the end, it's completely removed from the water. The top three images here, or images A through C, are showing the absorption of diesel oil, while the bottom four images, or images D through G, are demonstrating the absorption of chloroform. The absorption capacities of this sponge was determined to be higher than most absorbents, meaning that it's able to absorb more oil while still remaining smaller in size, and this thus boosts the efficiency of the product. Additionally, it was determined that it could be reused up to 50 times while still remaining at maximum absorbency. And since this sponge is more cost-effective than most other oil-absorbing sponges, it looks very promising for future oil spill cleanups. Now, I thought it would also be worthwhile to briefly mention some of the newer developments in this field that are still being explored and researched. The first of these are magnetic polyurethane sponges, which are created by adding an iron component to the sponges. This development could be very useful, as the sponges being magnetic makes it so that they can be sent out and retrieved without having any actual contact with the contaminated area. It also makes the process easier and potentially more cost-effective, as making the sponges magnetic also causes the operation to become more machine-based rather than needing a large human workforce for the dispatch and retrieval of the sponge. Now, the second development of interest is the effort to make flame-retardant polyurethane sponges. Since these sponges absorb large quantities of oil, it could become very problematic if they were to catch on fire, hence the efforts to make them fireproof. This research is still extremely new, so unfortunately, the methods used to make the sponge fire-resistant also tend to compromise its efficiency. However, research for both of these ideas are still in the very early stages of development, so varying methods are still being experimented with in order to determine how the polyurethane sponges can be made either magnetic or fire-resistant without compromising their overall efficiency. As of right now, this product has not yet been commercialized or used in the field in order to clean up oil spills. However, since our GPU is so effective, inexpensive, structurally stable, and environmentally friendly, this product could very well be produced on a larger scale and put to use in cleaning up oil spills both effectively and safely. So here you are able to build the resources that I used based upon the scientific research I performed with regards to this field. And thank you all very much for your time. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. And thank you again.